Hello, and thank you for joining me once again in the reading of The Children of the Law of One and the Lost Teachings of Atlantis by Jon Peniel. I have challenged myself to read a book um, online. I'm not much of a reader in the first place, so just with me doing this is a big deal for me. And it really, really makes me feel good that others are listening because I feel like the information in this book is really, really important. And I encourage everyone to pick up a copy for themselves. And if you are not able to, these are reasons why I'm doing the video in the first place. I felt like this information needed to get out there. So thank you for listening. Thank you for um, taking the time out of your day to receive this information because it is being sent from love on my half. So, with all gratitude, sit back and enjoy The Children of the Law of One and the Lost Teachings of Atlantis by Jon Peniel. And we are on chapter 11 we're starting on page 146, and more than likely this chapter as well will be in two parts. Okay? So, sit back and enjoy. Chapter 11 Subconscious Programming and Beliefs. My reunion with the dealer from Las Vegas, whom we'll call Bob, reminded me of my earlier training at the monastery regarding beliefs, programming, and the power of beliefs. Bob had no memory of me, or a great deal of his previous life, for that matter. He had actually retrained his mind, reprogrammed his beliefs and way of thinking, and been programmed by others in the psychiatric hospital. Because of what he was exposed to, given to read, and taught, he had strong feelings and beliefs based on the theories of the famous father of psychiatry, Sigmund Freud. And thus, for the most part, he viewed the world through Freudian colored glasses. Bob had a relaxed, easy life and was kind of a gentleman now whose only vice was an addiction to football games on TV. He didn't really believe in God. I, as the other children, believed that his kindness and compassion was more important than his beliefs. And compassion wasn't just an intellectual concept to him. He took a job as a jailer on a graveyard shift so he could bring a little kindness and joy to some of the inmates. He would make people hot chocolate, play chess or checkers with them and talk about their problems, etc. Whereas most other jailers in there treated the prisoners anywhere from coldly to sadistically. Because of Bod's programming, he believed that absolutely everything that occurred in people's lives was totally dictated by the subconscious, which is partly true to a very great extent, but without the other pieces of the puzzle and the inclusion of even 2% of our lives being controlled by free will choices. It misses by a mile. So to him, the prisoners were nothing but the unconscious pawns of their subconscious. Bob also didn't believe in synchronicity, which was a theory from Freud's rival psychiatrist, Carl Jung, whom seems to have a much more universal way of understanding the events in human life. Of course, Bob's viewpoint necessitated the beliefs that humans had free will at all. In his mind, everything was totally dictated by the subconscious. He believed that not one single action or thought was freely chosen, generated, or accidental, which could also be called coincidental or synchronistic. In any way, it was all totally generated by the subconscious. Because of this, in a strange way, he was a fatalist who believed everything was predestined. but not predestined via anything metaphysical or spiritual. People's lives were totally destined by the subconscious mind, and there was nothing they could do about it because if they thought they were having a new thought or free thought, it was merely the subconscious still generating it. It is true that about 98% of everyone's thoughts and actions are dictated by the subconscious, but again, that 2% makes all the difference in the world. Anyway, the karmatic tie between us that had started with his dealing to me at the blackjack table was not over yet. And he eventually became a very good friend and a householder of sorts. Through the combination of our interaction, conversations, and events that would ensue, Bob slowly, begrudgingly began to grasp that there were other powers at work in the universe other than the subconscious mind. And he began to understand that there were free will choices people would make, regardless of the influence and control of the subconscious. But at the same time, oddly enough, he didn't even have a clue as to just how powerful the subconscious mind really was. Of course, there was a time when I didn't understand it either. Back when I was an elder monk at the monastery, one of my final changes was to deal with my programming and my beliefs. I had to deal with so many issues, mostly from how I had been raised as a child. Everyone has programming like this. Whatever culture we have been raised in, we are sort of brainwashed from birth on by our society, family, friends, etc. And we create some of our own programming from our blind personal experiences. The ancient Atlantean teachings of the children regarding programming the subconscious mind and belief structures are quite unique and very in depth. They cover all aspects of the subject, including the effects of your beliefs, how beliefs work, and analyzing your beliefs and programming. Then they go to a step further and teach how to change your own program once you have made your analysis and are ready to make free will choices to alter your beliefs programming. At some point near the end of my training, I became very ill with a prostate infection. I finally went to Zayn and asked his advice for healing it. I was expecting herbal remedies and healing regimes, but instead, I was told that the problem was basically from certain conscious and subconscious negative programming and blocks. And he recommended that I fast, contemplate the issue, then speak with him again. The prostate problems were related to sexual blocks I had been raised with. But they were really a side issue, most importantly. I was about to begin really learning and realizing out of necessity the teachings about the vital importance of beliefs and working with the layers of the mind. The following are excerpts from various texts about the subjects. This next part has that italic writing, okay? Because this comes from original texts. The mind is three, one of the three lives below the surface. It can be a helpmate who performs great tasks or hinder us at every turn. Tend it you must, like a garden, remove the seeds of destruction and water the seeds of life. Belief is the great key to the powers controlled by the mind. What you believe is real in the realm of the mind. The realms of the mind are really to those experiencing them. So let me read that part again since it took me a long time to turn the page. Belief is the great key to the powers controlled by the mind. What you believe is real in the realms of the mind. The realms of the mind are reality to those experiencing them. The masses believe what others have given them, right or wrong, true or false. The wise realize this and are weary and set out to test and discover. Change comes only to the sincere. Okay, and that was the 4 different texts. Okay. The power of belief. Early in the book, we mentioned how belief can be such a powerful force that it can cause war, murder, prejudice, great temples to be built, etc. I just mentioned how my own beliefs created prostate problems. We all have different and many aspects to our own programming that are unique little problems within ourselves. But there are many things that your beliefs dramatically impact upon in your life, or even fundamentally control in totality. Your personal beliefs radically affect your life, your future, and they are all within your power to change. Belief and the powers of the mind. Before my days at the monastery, I was attending a university. To make a long story short, I flunked high school, was expelled, supposedly, had a genius IQ, and ended up in college instead. In one of my classes, the professor gave a hypnosis demonstration. I witnessed people who were so well hypnotized that when they were told that a burning cigar was being touched to the palm of their hand, blisters instantly appeared, even though only an unlit cigar was touched to their hand. But as the years have gone by in my life, I have witnessed far more amazing and strange things, believe it or not. It really doesn't matter to me. I have seen objects moved with thought. I've seen hand-to-hand combat where no flesh ever made contact. I've seen bodies tossed about like rag dolls by energies invisible to the normal human eye. I've seen people with bad cuts stop bleeding by thinking it so. I've seen people stop their heart and stop breathing without dying. I've seen monks in the Himalayas sit in the snow in conditions that were so cold that as they were wrapped in wet blankets, the blankets froze around them. After many layers of blankets were applied, the monks would visualize heat within themselves radiating out. The blankets would defrost, and a circle of melted snow would appear around them. Their degree of mental accomplishment was measured by the size of the circle around them. And I've seen far more. The hypnosis demonstration in college were mysteries and remarkable enough, but after witnessing the monks melting ice, I asked Zain how such things were done. After having me read what was called the Tibetan Treatise of Psychic Heat, he began teaching me all the details of the power of the mind. It began with this discussion. Your beliefs control and affect the incredible powers of the mind, which dictate or influence many things in your life. your choices, and thus your course in life and what you create in your life, your ability to learn and apply your knowledge, your health, whether or not you foster sickness or wellness, your ability to draw upon or squander inner strength. The energy aspects of inner strength are universal life energy. It is an energy that bridges the gap between physical and spiritual. It flows through all things, all life, and can be consciously or subconsciously manipulated by the mind. It can heal and it can destroy. The same energy is called chi or kai or reiki in some cultures. Note, the children of the law of one, energy techniques are the sources of all others, far more complete, advanced than what is now called reiki or chi. I learned a little bit about ki for martial arts training that I had as a young teenager, but it's really a minor energy in a sense. Far more importantly, your beliefs affect your ability to flow with and allow to flow the ultimate power, that of the universal spirit, belief, and the powers of the mind and knowledge. Is the power learned through knowledge, intellectually, or through the intuitive training? Using your mind to influence your body or elements requires a firm foundation, a base of information and knowledge, roots. The more you know how you have about mental techniques, and the more you understand the reasons why and how they work, the more effective they will be for you. Also, the more you know about how your body works psychologically or biologically, the better. This applies especially to those areas of functioning that relate to any changes or controls you wish to exert on your body or mind. It is not really necessary to have any understanding of such psychological functions. After all, the subconscious mind has been performing vast, powerful, and intricate functions quite automatically and with no help from us. But the more a person knows about his internal biological working, the more effective mental manipulation of the body can be. And it is relatively easy to gain a basic grasp of the psychological functions of the body. Oh, no problem. I'll just go read Grey's Anatomy tonight, or Da Vinci studies, or better yet, I'll go back to the States and dig up some dead bodies and conduct my own autopsies. Or maybe you should be a comedian and go on the Ed Sullivan show. Peniel, are we done with the sarcasm? He said with a smile. I nodded affirmatively, also with a smile. Assumptions, a key to the power of belief. Other than digging up dead bodies, he smirked. For direct knowledge, part of having a good foundation of knowledge is understanding the way belief works. One powerful key to the working of belief is assumption. Assumption functions like a catalyst and provides us with a means to effect tremendous changes, including changes in our physical bodies. When we assume something or subconscious accepts it, it is an accomplished fact and proceeds to manifest in the body. Using assumption does not require anything on the order of blind faith. Rather, it is based on facts that are well established. You see, your belief in the power of assumption will come from areas of this foundation. The information based you are acquiring from your learning here, from your teachers, your studies of the ancient texts, and your practices and applications are all providing you with the facts you need to know about how the mind can dramatically alter physiology. In essence, your belief in the power of belief will be the result and the summary of all the other information contained in your foundation. To help you readers of this book along with similar lines, we will provide you with some examples of the mind's physical effects from various research studies, as well as the hows and whys of such occurrences. Mind and body in search of unity. The children of Atlantis have always known about the effects of the mind on the physical plane, including the physical body, and used this knowledge in practical application. Now, recent scientific studies substantiate the effects of the mind on the body in many ways. For one, new research indicates that a very high percentage of illness may be mentally, emotionally originated. In fact, mental and emotional triggers are involved with the majority of people suffering from a wide spectrum of diseases today. If a person can be psychosomatically ill, then doesn't it follow that a person can become psychosomatically healthy? Or taking it further, create desired psychological changes in the body. The primary point to keep in mind, which has been demonstrated by numerous studies and scientific research, is that psychological changes create physical changes. In other words, your mind affects your body. A new view. Although the prevailing school of thought in medicine is still leaning towards the physical effect on the body viewpoint, as opposed to fully accepting the ramifications of the mental effects on the body viewpoint, things have changed and are still changing, sometimes with a vengeance. More and more, the separate realms are being considered together. Chemicals, hormones, electrical impulses, etc., are being looked at in light of their effect on the mind and emotions. But possibly even more important, the mind and emotions are being looked at in the light of their effects on chemicals, hormones, electrical impulses, and much more. The effects the mind can have on the body is almost staggering when you first realize it. It seems unbelievable at times, yet there is a veritable mountain of individuals' personal experience that attest to these facts. The mind's power over the body is very real indeed. The placebo effect. Most of you are familiar with the term placebo. A placebo is an inert substance like a sugar pill that has the effect of an actual drug. The drug the person taking believes it is. This effect occurs because the person taking the placebo is told that it is a drug and just assumes that it is. There it is again, assumption and belief. A question of the patient's suggestibility comes in here. Contrary to the common myth that people with high suggestibility have low intelligence, the truth is that the higher the intelligence, the greater the benefits from using placebo can be, as long as the assumption is there. When a physician uses suggestion to fool a patient in assuming that a placebo is really a powerful beneficial drug, it doesn't matter how intense or elaborate that suggestion is. Often, it doesn't take much to generate a belief. A simple smile from the physician can be effective as 48 hours of intensely indoctrinating the patient about the effectiveness of the placebo. It just depends on what the patient believes about how effective it truly will be. This usually quite substantial because most people have a great deal of faith, belief factor again, in their doctors. If their doctor prescribes a medication or treatment for them, then it must be good and worthwhile. Thus, the faith in the doctor translates into the patient's assumption and belief about the potency of the treatment. The mind follows the lead of the belief and actually makes physical changes in the body to match the presumed effects of the drug the individual assumes has been taken. Zayn said pretty much the same thing. You may have heard a doctor prescribing a sugar pill without the patient knowing it, with the results of beneficial effects on the patient's health. A doctor may prescribe a sugar pill to avoid giving a patient who just seems to be a complainer an actual powerful drug that could have side effects. But more important, it may be prescribed in a case where there are no appropriate drugs or treatment presently available. But the physician does not want the patient to feel that there's no hope. The point here the point here is that in many cases the patient taking the placebo have remarkable reductions or recovering from physical symptoms. And some of these are cases in which there is no known cure. In summary, the power of the placebo lies in the mind of the individual using it. It is the power of belief, anticipation, expectancy, or assumption that gives us such amazing phenomenon as the placebo effect. Destructive assumption, negative placebo effects. Beneficial placebo effects come from positive assumptions, just as powerful, though, are negative assumptions. The point we made earlier about separating the placebo effect from the physical treatment applies to negative assumption also. How many people may have received beneficial physical treatment without having positive results, or having less positive results because their feelings or expectancies were negative? The following study gives us an example of certain effects from negative assumptions. A placebo was substituted for a drug called mefenacine. When the placebo was taken instead of the mefenacine, it produced the same negative reactions in patients as the real drug itself would have. Symptoms such as nausea, heart palpitations, abdominal pain, buildup of fluid in the hips, dizziness, skin rashes, and anaphylactic shock occurred as a result of administering the placebo. I have found that most people intuitively sense the truth of how we can mentally affect ourselves. You have done it yourself, either positively or negatively, to one degree or another. You probably can remember someone who, through chronic stress reactions, mentally set himself up to be sick. Seeing this, you may have thought to yourself, He's going to make himself sick if he goes on like that. And he probably did, of course. This same phenomenon also exists in a positive way. Will the smart rats please raise their hands? The following is an example that doesn't directly apply to the types of assumption phenomenon we've been discussing thus far, but does demonstrate some fascinating, serious, and far-reaching results. It demonstrates how a person's belief can not only have substantial effect on them, but on others around them also. The experiments, which were conducted by Dr. R. Rosenthal, involved two groups of rats, which were being timed in their progress through a maze. The graduate students who were conducting the experience were told by Dr. Rosenthal that one group of rats were very smart and would complete the maze quite rapidly, whereas the other group were essentially identical in intelligence and previous performance time. But the students assumed and believed that one group was better than the other. And their beliefs actually changed the rat's performance. That rat group they assumed was superior did remarkably better than the supposedly dumb group. Obviously, something that the students thought and or did had a significant effect on the outcome of the experiment. Similar studies conducted with school teachers who were told that certain children were exceptionally bright or exceptionally dull had the same results as Dr. Rosenthal's rats experiments. This type of effect is a good reason scientific experiments are done in a double-blind fashion, whereas even the researchers don't know what the subject is, so they can't influence the outcome of the studies of their own assumptions. Okay, I'm going to stop here on page 152. And then pick up the second half of chapter 11 from here, okay? At the part of subconsciousness. Once again, I am reading The Children of the Law of One and the Lost Teachings of Atlantis by Jon Peniel. I appreciate and beyond gratitude, I'm grateful for you listening and taking part of this personal challenge of mine. And for those of you, and you know who you are, that gave me that nudge, I am extremely, extremely grateful. So until next time, see you then.